How is that broker builder relationship as the builder kind of grows into a larger and larger entity?
It's just similar to going to our during our college time when we go along first day first show with the friends. When you go to get in, that sort of frenzy will happen for that buyer.
What are government regulation limitations on collect customer cash?
Without RERA registration of a project in India, it is illegal to basically sell or market. Buyers believe that there is always a deal which they will miss. This is a myth buyers have, and that myth is what sellers cash in. How many of the consumers are actually holding cash and buying real estate? Many of them go for home loans and they buy real estate for tax saving. The distribution channel for builders is inevitable today. Understanding buyers' psyche and communication and positioning is very important.
What do they do in terms of like marketing and getting customers fast?
They have come to real estate or they're calling themselves as real estate player purely by as a POC, trying to do a POC on becoming a developer. First time movers as a developer, because as I said, entry barrier is very limited. Anybody can construct a house and sell it.
Hi, Arun. Hi, Balaji. Happy to see you again for a new episode. I think we've been slowly covering a lot of interesting topics. So we started about how like greenfield areas are developed and how kind of large builders come there, buy large parcels of land and take a 10-20 year approach. And then along with that, the regional and tier 2, tier 3 builders tag along. What are the considerations which investors and home buyers should look at when they buy homes, either for livability or for investor perspective, all of that. So today I wanted to dive a little deeper into builder psychology, builder sales approach, builder value chain, and all of that. Right? We are fortunate to have Arun always amongst us, because Arun has played multiple roles in this value chain in his 15 plus years of experience. Right? So.
Audience maintain homes.
No problem.
You're our hero anyway.
As a famous philosopher said, the me in me in me. Everything is about that. So
You don't get me started.
we all know that philosopher. We all love him. We all hate him. But yeah, we can't live without him. Anyways, so coming back to this. So I want to understand typically how a builder's value chain is, number one. Number two, how would you classify builder? Not just regional and national, typically by their size, by the number of projects they have done, by their land bank, by the project value in hand, right? I mean, I know by now it is pretty regimented that what makes them sell by themselves. Can a builder really sell by themselves? Or that is always doomed to fail? Or do they, at what point do they purely trust on a broker network or a channel partner network? At what point do they start having their own sales folks? I think many of our viewers, especially retail buyers, would not even know that actually almost all sales are done by brokers. Like even where the builders have sales personnel, typically they work with the channel network and they generally not sell by themselves, even where they have sales staff. Right? Why so? Why do they so much depend on brokers, whatever is their size? And how is that broker builder relationship as the builder kind of grows into a larger and larger entity? So all of these I wanted to kind of slowly start exploring so that people get a good idea into the whole B2B setup of property.
It is very simple in that perspective, right? See, assuming tomorrow you are starting or building a project, say let it be as small as anything, right? What would you start with? When do you think of sales?
I mean, typically in an ideal world, I would start thinking of sales right from the beginning, because in a very healthy business, and this again is very different, very counterintuitive to what the end user would look. As a businessman or an investor, I would like to operate with external cash flow. and external cash flow, ideally not from a credit source or an equity source, but from the buyers.
Now, this is where instead of getting into cash flow and financial points, things like that. See, somewhere the root of thinking of sales starts from cash flow, right? Which means money coming in, right? So when would anybody say, even if we are starting tomorrow as day one, or that day one is good for any one new project, even for a DLF or a Kubankara, sorts of a biggies, right? Who might have a better, bigger balance sheets and probably publicly listed, right? So those people also, for them as a new project, when it is on the drawing board, when it is on the paper, definitely they are going to see two things. One is, how are we going to make sure that we execute it, right? To execute this project, there is land component, there is construction component, and then after building it as an asset, then trading it to a consumer to get money. So ultimately, if you see, somebody has to fund the land, somebody has to fund the construction, and then somebody has to take effort to trade. So today, the efforts have come to a point where, when do we start the trade? Can we start, instead of, should we accumulate the asset till the end and then trade? Or as we build the asset, do we trade? Or can we start trading right from day one? Right? And this is the thought of the seller, right? The consumer, on the other hand, thinks that, hey, I'm coming on day one. Why do I have to pay something at a later point?
Okay. One point, I don't need you to tell now, but I want you to keep in mind as you walk us through this. Very, very important is, what are government regulation limitations on when you can collect customer cash? I know that has gone through an evolution where you simply can't on day one sell the entire home and get. So I want you to also, not now, but as organically plow that back into discussion also, that where does regulation stand when it comes to collecting customer money at given point of
I would say, Badri, just like the government, you came in correctly to regulate my thought process, I would say, right? So, I mean, this is how a simple seller normally thinks, right? A buyer, when do I bring the buyer? I want to bring the buyer as early as possible, so that any which ways I'm going to give it to the buyer. End of the day, I mean, I'm going to trade this asset to somebody. So why can't I engage somebody at the start of the project? This is the best wish list for any seller or any builder out there, right? As this is happening, on the other side, buyers are going to be counter thinking. Also, they have to start thinking from their shoes as to, hey, I am coming and engaging on day one, and then probably, do I need to get that much leeway if I park the money in bank and then buy it in something it's ready to move in? I get interest for that period of time. So can I offset that here by parking the same money with you? These are point of views from the buyer, right? As this is happening, I have to counter this. The sales guy comes and says, or the seller comes and say that, hey, at a ready to move in point, you won't be actually having a unit like us. Probably everything will be sold, right? So there's always a middle ground which is found, and it's not the interest of the buyer nor the interest of the seller. It's always some sort of an amicable medium sales which starts happening, right?
I'd like to arrive at something over here. Sorry to interrupt, Arun. In the end, when a developer puts out a project, it's all about getting things sold out, and it's all about how fit you are to go to the market. That's the fundamental thumb rule that any business would perceive if they prefer to actually go out to the market and start selling. It could be right on day one, or it could be even day minus 20 or day minus 40 for that matter. All you need to do is, you have to establish legitimacy in a way that, yes, we are trustworthy. Yes, your money will be safe with us. Yes, you have come right well in advance so that you have some more perks from us. These are all few things that a developer can do, can get into deliberations. Instead of, as far as I've seen in the tech world, and of course in the property world as well, that, if you are in early, you have a lot of unfair advantage, because by the time the project kickstarts, or by the time the project progresses, there could be a spike in the land value in that area. It might as well create an impact in the surroundings, though it could be negligible. it plays quite an important role. So that sort of an aspect should be pondered as well. And given those, if you are legitimate to start selling, you can start anytime. That's my bottom line, which I want to add.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. But see, there is a lot of myths here, right? I mean, all of us as a market, right? We are all part of the market. The market, there is a huge myth of saying that, yeah, I buy this today. I want to cash in on the appreciation, right? There will be possibility of infrastructure development. There will be possibility of the property becoming very, a high demand and things like that. I feel that irrespective of what parcel or what space of real estate you buy, whether it is a plot or a home or a apartment villa, whatever may be it, right? Real estate tend to appreciate, almost double on an average of 10 years, irrespective of what money you put in, right? There are few cases which double, it could be at about 5-6%, 5-6 years. And there are few wild exceptional cases of going up to 15 years. But on an average, across India, wherever you buy, whatever piece of land you buy or whatever piece of home you buy, right, it's going to definitely going to give you a double appreciation in 10 years. So the myth is that if I'm an investor, I'm holding cash. How many of the consumers are actually holding cash and buying real estate? That's a second point which we need to think of. Almost many of them go for home loans and they buy real estate for tax saving. These are incredibly different use cases altogether. And I really don't understand those use cases, at least being in real estate for 15-16 years. As a buyer, I'll never do that.
No, it's a different story altogether, because that involves segmentation on the purpose of why a certain user might come in and invest in a property. There are about 7 to 8 segments that we have in terms of the audience profiling as to why they invest on what they invest and so on. That's reserved for one more episode.
We'll get into it later, Balaji. By your perspective, I just made it as a passing comment. I would like to come back to this seller perspective and the initial question of, when does the seller actually start thinking of sales, right? So we'll stick to that portion of the builder perspective, right? So if you see that the builder wants to start as early as possible to mitigate risk. On the other side, the buyer wants to take it as late as possible to mitigate risk, right? This is the typical tendency, right? To give cushion for the buyer, the builder tend to project his architect, project his structural, project his approval case, project his whatever norms and things like that, which keeps on coming up, right? That will be today, RERA has come in, and just like Badri has spoken about, when to collect, after RERA only anybody can today go on to publish and buy, sell a property, to be frank. Without RERA registration of a project in India, it is illegal to basically sell or market as of today, right? This is after RERA implementation. So that is a primary regulation under RERA. RERA itself is a regulatory body, which is a state body which regulates the state area, right? State geography per se. So as this is happening, right, what typically the builder is failing to understand in sales is that the perspective of the buyer of mitigating, or he would always want to move away from his idea, which means the buyer is always in the opposite pole of mind space than his, which most of the builders, I would say 90+% of the builders do not understand. They tend to take buyers for granted, right? They tend to think that, hey, if not this buyer, there's a huge demand. As I said, every home out there, supply out there has 60x, 60 times demand, eyeballs, right? That's the simple understanding of real estate here. Because of that, the seller today, be it a broker or a builder, tend to take buyer for granted and still project, right, as a rate. And there are buyers who are ignorant of real estate, blindly buy real estate because it's cheaper, because it sounds cheaper. Let me put it that way. It's not cheaper. I would say it sounds cheaper. right? I remember I myself, in my early days, I have said, I have seen, or I have been part of ad campaigns where we have said it's not on, it's not just off, it is not just far off, it is just not 500 times, it's here now on the main road at just 10 lakhs, right? But that on is on the main road, but that main road is probably, I would say, 25 kilometers from the proper developed area, right? And just because it's 10 lakhs and just because of the ad campaign, buyer tend to still buy on day one. We used to, well, this cannot happen today because of RERA, right? But that time we sold about 450 houses in a span of 3-4 days over a weekend, right? Why that happened is because, hey, 10 lakhs, and I don't probably get anything at 10 lakhs at such a composition, is a myth what buyers believe still today. Buyers believe that there is something like, there is always a deal which they will miss, right? This is a myth buyers have, and that myth is what sellers cash in, right? So coming back to sales and sales point of view, I still feel builders have to be much more focused on buyers. The buyers have to be given much more trustworthiness, or if buyer is expected to come and probably book early on day one, maybe after RERA, we've got the RERA and we are about to kickstart construction, right? That day, if a buyer has to, if all the 100% of the project has to be sold, let's assume, right? That's the ideal for a builder. That is definitely possible, and I'm sure that many buyers are out there ready to buy also. Is that the builder has to be ready, as a project has to be ready at day one, right? Which means there has to be an exceptional combination of everything, right? From the buyer perspective, which means a deal, a value for money, which need not be just cheaper in paper, but it has to be value proposition, right? If I have this combination after 3-5 years with me, I'm sure this is going to stand out in this region. Thereby, I'll be able to probably, be able to sell faster, because I have the opportunity to sell faster. Probably I can get a premium from the market price. If a buyer could realize this on day one, I'm sure 100% of the homes can be sold even today on day one, before even construction starts.
But again, I have a couple of dimensions to this, and I don't know if we can finish discussing all of those dimensions. But anyways, typically what ascertains, isn't there an element of new builder versus very established builder, their marketing muscle, their clout with the customer? So will this not impact the amount of risk that they take and the spending that they do vis-a-vis like employing a sales channel or having their own sales staff or all of that? Because ultimately it has to sit in that 3 to 6% of home value as spent as marketing sales. Now an established builder knows how to kind of work around that math, but I would say a relatively new or a very new builder will struggle with that. So how do they go about their campaign?
See, unfortunately, Indian real estate has become line cover film releases every Friday, right? Whichever film has the highest promotion gets the highest opening, irrespective of story, director, exclusive, right? So that's the story for real estate, at least here, right? So it's not about whether you're a newbie in the market or you're a superstar or the like 15-20 years and you already have a fan base and XYZ. No, it invariably requires you to position yourself. You need to be accessible for the people to come and inquire, site visit, and book at a much faster pace.
But also to extend the parallel you had with the films, the big star movies will anyways become big projects, big budget, big layout. So typically a big banner will get better access. The banks will be queuing to lend to them. Their project sizes will be bigger, right? Typically, the person with access to most credit gets most eyeballs, or the person who will anyways get the eyeballs will get the credit, right? The big stars.
No. The later is something which most of them are not thinking. the later part of the sentence what you spoke, right? The people with maximum eyeballs get maximum credit. That 95% of the builders don't understand. People still understand that, hey, me having a valuable asset with me as a parcel alone is good enough for me to get a credit. No.
At all. Not at all. That's like you saying I have the best story, but I'll still make the movie a hit. Doesn't happen all the time.
That's the point, right? So basically, who can lure the customer faster gets the credit out there? Because credit is not a problem. Money is not a problem. Working capital is not a problem. I'm sure big builders are, I'm no, so I'm a very small person to say all these things, but I'm saying that's absolutely not a problem. It's about how are you going very low? How close are you to your consumers? And your single announcement can lure ex-customers at any point in time, meaning that you will get your land for joint venture, you will get your projects get funded for construction, you will get best architects to design it for you, you will get your structural engineers to do it. So the so-called the top builders have done this over a period of time. They built their step 1, 2, 3 over 10, 15, 20 years to be where they are today. Right? And
Ultimately, execution and customer experience is what has got them that level of respect over time, repeatedly. So they become stars. Just like stars give wholesome entertainment. So over a period of time, on an average, so obviously their projects automatically start bigger, their budgets get bigger, everything. It's like, that's it.
Badri, that wholesome entertainment, right? That is very much in parallel to a buyer's a buying thing. Like if you actually see a guy, at least I've been part of several booking processes where I've sat with people signing their first check, right? You should see what happens to the buyer, right? It's a huge celebration. It's just similar to any of us going to our doing our college thing, where we go along first day first show with the friends. When you go on to get it, right? That sort of frenzy will happen for the buyer. After buying, I'm sure after buying, he would definitely would have taken his family for a meal, for a celebration. All of these things is going to happen. And
I think DLF for someone recently had, I think, 42 crore apartments in Gurgaon, and like day one, it's done. Like literally, there's only air and a board.
I'm not sure about 42 crores. Maybe it might be even higher. I was thinking, but
I remember there was a huge queue. Everybody with high network individuals.
Yeah.
Again, since we are audiences, we should not get carried away by just these newses, PRs, which is for the buyers and which is for the market, right? We have to probably dissect these news articles for our seller audience, right? For our insiders. I would say that, right, those queues are possible not by merely the DLF office, DLF sales office, right? Can you imagine a 10, 15, 20 member sales team, whatever may be it? I do not know the size of the sales team in DLF, but I'm sure it can't exceed the size what I'm trying to say, right? Will not be able to pool and make people queue up in front of your office, which is 400, 500 people, right? They would have definitely had or still have close to 500, 600 channel partners, very loyal to them, who will always working, right? It's like an IPO. Before an IPO, how best an IPO can be subscribed or oversubscribed is purely by the merchant bankers you engage with, and how many more merchant bankers you get into. If you if any IPO says that I don't engage a merchant banker and still I go list myself and I'm getting oversubscribed, that's something insane, right? We won't be able to imagine that. So similar ways, if any of the builder out there, even a startup, if he's thinking that he has to have that much queue in front of his office on day one, then what he has to do is he has to make sure that he understands the builder's buyer psyche. He gets all the checklists done. He's able to communicate it that well to the market as advertisements and means. But as he's doing, he cannot restrict himself just to his sales team. His sales team has to be spick and span, like how we spoke last in the last podcast. Yes, but beyond that, he has to be available in many more as point of sale for the buyers to access you, right? Buyers to inquire you. So he has to have his sales team, and also he has to have at least 100 more touch points across India. And now, if I have 100 plus touch points, and now I'm giving an advertisement, right? Or I'm stalking on a newspaper or a radio, or today it's all online, right? So it's YouTube or Facebook, whatever it is. People tend to, after seeing the ad for 3-5 times, they tend to wake up and then probably turn around and go to the next store and see the same brand, and it's here, probably I could inquire, right? That's when the inquiry quantum goes up, right? It's not like, okay, I give a huge paper ad and then I have my sales team in my city or my office, and then everybody have to come to my office. That's gone on those days today. So the distribution channel for builders is inevitable today, and understanding buyers psyche and communication and positioning is very important.
So how do small new builders do this? So is it a genuine problem that they face today? Like, for example, somebody has like this huge patch of land. They think they can build like 15 villas, right? Even this example, we know somebody known to us, in a big city in India, a client of ours, right? They have a good parcel of land in a good locality. They want to promote 15 villas, right? Yeah, they have done this a couple of times, but they're not a prolific builder like a DLF or a Puravankara or whatever. Nowhere close. Like once in few years, they kind of they have very good aesthetics. They start and promote properties and stuff. So as good as like it's a one-off project for them, right? So what do they do in terms of like marketing and getting customers fast? Like how do they go about it?
People for anybody who's of this range, right? If I read them right, they have come to real estate, or they're calling themselves as real estate player purely by as a POC. They're trying to do a POC on becoming a developer, right? They're yet to become a developer. Yeah. In the proof of this is one, or there are people who have already like arrived in terms of their life, in terms of capital, and they already have assets in terms of land parcels. Now, instead of liquidating the land parcel at this rate, probably they are thinking that if they could construct and sell, they would probably make more margins, right? If these are their objectives, right, their timeline and map is going to be completely different. They are not going to think, because because they have bought land probably 10-15 years back, or probably, right, and their their investment or their is itself is already appreciated probably 3-4-5 times. Now they're thinking to even double it. So their perception on the entire market price itself is going to change, because they might even willing to they would rather even wait for another 5-6 years.
Okay, but do you think they will still be okay? Assume they come with this. They think that, hey, through my family WhatsApp network or through LinkedIn, Twitter, I can slowly sell this. I can slowly sell this at whatever. So if they think that I can do this at my own pace through my personal network and social networks, even then, for the construction activities and for the ongoing activities, even if they have the land parcel, they have to spend out of pocket, right?
See, that is where they go very much like a villa and things like that, right? So they could go very slow. See, I do not know whether somebody who has owned the land parcel willing to construct an apartment and then wait. Because constructing an apartment is different from constructing a villa. Because constructing a villa, like each individual customer pays for that villa and you have to hand it over individually, right? Visibly, apartment is like, irrespective of how much I sell, even if 20% of the people buy it, I still have to construct the entire house, right?
I understand. Yeah. Yes, I remember.
Completely different, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, people tend to think that I would say they are yet to become a real estate developer, right? Because today's real estate developers are not guys who are landowners, right? Somebody owns land, somebody is an architect, somebody is a civil engineer, and somebody is a contractor. A developer who conceptualizes it, directs it, and makes it as a product and has the capacity to sell to consumer. For this process, he takes a maximum 3-5 years time and he makes a 25-30% profit on the market rate, right? So definitely in this process, I cannot delay because as I am delaying, my margins are going to go down from 25% to 30%. I mean, 25% onwards, it's going to come down as a developer. So these are developing model. The first time movers as a developer, because as I said, entry barrier is very limited. Anybody can construct a house, right, and sell it. Say today there are in tier 2 cities there are individual 5 cent plot they buy, they construct a 2,000 square feet and they make a margin of 20-30% still and sell it as a contractor. Even he calls himself as a developer. An individual, I'm saying. So this is also the same process, but the point is that for the same house, one individual house, it takes 2 years, right, for it to get over. And his size and team size and his capacity itself is. So vis-a-vis that, if you say take a DLF, probably they might do about, Purva Kara, if you take, they might do about sales of about 800-900 houses per month, right? Vis-a-vis, which means per annum they might be selling, which means those many houses they have to probably hand it over in 3-5 years. So every 3-5 years, so many houses they hand over also, right? So see the amount of difference and magnitude with which things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, to make it a little more complicated, I'd like to bring in the professor angle over here, Badri. Given the fact that you all have the leverage of understanding how the marketing dynamics work, I'll try to be as simple as possible for the audience. Now, you might have heard from Seth Godin's TED Talk and Simon Sinek's book Start With Why as well, that the outliers and innovators are the ones who will come well in advance, create a market out of it. We were talking about Purvas and DLFs and Hiranandanis all these days. And, such players are different. When it comes to these small-time players, it is ideal that they become a late adopter to a certain region so that they have all the threshold to be viable, sustainable within their team's growth and, of course, within their organization's growth as well. That should be a one project wonder. Their business shouldn't be a one project wonder. And, their goal should be on a long term instead of going to a nowhere and trying to set up something, towards the likes of, such big players. It is always important that they go to a place where things are already set, things are quite developed, there is enough demand, and a little bit of trust should be instilled, and that alone is sufficient to get their property sold. It's a very simple thumb rule.
You're right, definitely right. See, even this I could correlate with my initial conversation with any developer, right? See, when a team comes to me and says that I want to, Arun, can you take this up and sell it for us, and can you predict our cash flows and things like that? I say that all are possible, right? I can predict sales, cash flows. That's not a problem. But I asked a simple, basic question. I always judge the founder in terms of what his objective is as a founder, right? Because Badri, just like you are, most of the starters come to me, right? They starters, I would say, a guy with probably 1, 2, 3, 5 projects, right? They are the ones who approach us to make them bigger, better. So we work with people who want to become a serious real estate developer, right? So we could build that for them. So that's what we do. So what I'm saying is, those sort of builders, when I ask their objective, if they say that, Arun, by next 2, 3, 4 years, I have to do practically 5 projects, unless they say that, right? There is no scope there. Because if they don't say that, then that means this project they have, or probably they are open to probably wait and sell for the appreciation. Which means there is a huge different dynamics altogether there, right? So if assuming somebody says that, hey, Arun, or if they are thinking, forget about Arun. So everybody thinks that they have to start scaling from where they are today, from one project in a year to 5 projects in a year, to 10 projects in a year, to 15 projects in a year. If they are trying to think that I want to draw a parallel to our Professor Balaji is that, that it's just not about the objective. They have to have a simple patience or incubation time to set up certain processes, right? Because they have to have a proper team in terms of sales, in terms of marketing communications, in terms of their CRM processes, in terms of the various aspects we spoke about in the last episode. Those things, unless they have it for their first call or a first lead, right? They're not going to scale, right? There's nothing will be able to be predicted if they don't have it for their first lead, right? So that patience, because people tend to wait for an approval. People tend to wait for an architect to give a design. People wait for a structural engineer to test everything, right? A soil test XYZ. But a builder of that category, I'm saying, the starter builders, they tend to not think, they always think that sales is like overnight. It can be switched on like that.
I have a little difference over here. I have a little difference of opinion over here. When you spoke about the waiting time that the people are okay with, that's only applicable to big players. You should have everything ready in hand if you are a small player. Only then the buyers even ponder,
Yeah, but it is and it's true, but it will still take that time. It is still going to take that time for soil test, structural engineering. I mean, they can.
it should be ready. It should be completed, and then you have to go to the market.
Yeah, but from the builder's point of view, they are going to have to cultivate that patience. So nothing's going to get ready at a faster pace. Secondly, I think that what the note which Arun said is like very eye opening for me, and it's a very good segue to kind of conclude and leave with that note that I see that as a North Star metric to gauge whether somebody is like a small timer or a passion. I would say a real estate builder for passion and versus a real estate builder who's genuinely a professional outfit. Two things, as you said. One is, are they ready to set in that marketing processes right from the first lead? That is one. Number two, are they able to manage multiple projects at a time? Otherwise, I think that also I see as a critical factor with some of the folks who come to us and say that, hey, sell this villa project for me, or I have a land bank. Can you figure out this whole entire sales journey? All of these people can think only one project at a time. It is a passion project, I would say, or it is like they think that they are sitting on a cash cow, but they are not seeing builder or promoting property as a professional full-time vocation. So that I think is definitely
These people are there to become a developer.
Exactly. It's like okay, I have a land bank, so this is something additionally I'll do, kind of a thing.
That's where the difference is. Are you going to be a landlord or are you going to be a developer? If you're a landlord trying to play a cameo, that's a different thing. We know quite a few people who are doing such a practice as well.
It's just good, but then they just need to be aware of like where they stand in the value chain. So I think this is a great note to kind of conclude as to where that seriousness or that switch kicks in from passion project or side hustle or like kind of making extra income with the land bank versus becoming like a serious property developer. So yeah, thanks Arun, and thanks Balaji.
Super. Thanks for the time, guys.
Cheers. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.
Yeah.